Thanks very much. Mr. Mittal is here with us, and Mr. Mittal, you're a Davos veteran of sorts. Every year we say that, and then we said, how's the mood like in all of this? What is really happening? Is the world a more uncertain place to do business in? Is India really the shining spot? We've heard this now for 3-4 years. Back home, we are extremely apologetic about our growth figures. What's the picture really like? Let me hear it from someone who's actually been there and seen that.
You know, you're right. Every year we come here. There have been a few years of very euphoric mood here. But last 2-3 years have been one of confusion. And I would say that confusion is only confounded this year. US, China, Brazil, South Africa. None of the markets are scared. Brexit, government shutdown. So generally people are confused what's going on. But thankfully economies, including in the US, are not kind of melting away. India continues to do very well. China has dropped under their concern, but 6.5% for a large economy like China
is not bad.
It's not bad. But markets on the ground, reality is not so bad. Mood is still not uplifting.
Why is that so?
I think it's just uncertain, fear of the unknown, what will happen. Even in India, when you talk to people, more and more products are selling, whether it's motorcycles or it's pizza or it's mobile phones. So you see the markets are responding, customers are buying a lot more. But if you ask the business people, the mood is, first thing,
they're not still building the money where it matters. In India specifically, people are perhaps not making big investments, not breaking investments. The money on the ground is perhaps because of elections. There's a big uncertainty on account of that. Do you believe that's an uncertain event ahead of us, and how is this really changing our economic and investment landscape?
I think Indian businessmen don't worry about elections. They're used to this. It's been going on for a long time, and they know things settle down fairly quickly. It's the foreign investors who would typically, if they are not into already a decision implementation, if they are doing a decision at this point, they'll say, let's watch. And that 3-4 months of watch is nothing. 100 days in a lifetime
in the life of
MNC is nothing.
So as we go into elections, and I think you've seen governments come and governments go and stood there steady with your business, how are you going to assess the performance of this government, the big hits, the misses, and what do you believe will be the election issues of 2019?
Well, unfortunately, the election discourse has become pretty ugly. I've watched elections for a long period of time, but the shrill, the noise, the language, it's just getting a bit uncomfortable for people at large. But that's election time. These things are expected, these things happen, but the noise is a little high. And I hope once the election is done, things will settle down back. In terms of the current government, I think they have been reformist in their very nature. A lot of financial reforms have taken place, ease of doing business issues have been sorted out. Could they have done more? I think we can always expect.
Where would you have wanted more reforms to happen?
I think more ease of doing business. I still feel there are a lot of bureaucratic issues which hold back this government's stellar performance. They could have delivered far more. The intention is there.
But will you agree with me that I think Indian industry, just like a lot of global investors, will have to make their peace with the fact that in a democracy like ours, it's going to be very incremental reforms that will happen. And are reforms also difficult to sell politically?
It is, and people don't get the benefits of change anytime soon. And they resent these big changes, especially when you have stark disparities of rich getting richer, poor not making it, agriculture in distress, people moving into urban centers, not getting enough jobs. So earlier disparities would be acceptable, much less now. The level of
it's a more connected, exactly.
It's a more connected society. Curse us, thank us, but the world is connected now. People see what's going on, and they suddenly realize that they can do so much better. And that restlessness is there. And for any political leader, including strong leaders like Prime Minister Modi, it is hard in a short period of time of 4 or 5 years to make everybody happy.
It's difficult to make everybody happy, but the one thing that makes investors and industry unhappy is perhaps a fractured mandate. And the way we see from where we stand today, it doesn't look like there will be a clear majority in 2019. If it is going to be a coalition, do you believe it's essentially a bad thing for the economy?
India surprises everyone, so we don't know what the election results are going to come. So one, will it be fractured? Seems at the moment from whatever we read in your papers, from whatever people are talking about, that seems to be the likely scenario. with one of the existing large party still holding the anchor position there.
Sure.
But also you look at those governments which came in between, which were not having the full mandate and all that. India just keeps on moving forward. And do remember, as far as reforms are concerned, you're right. It's calibrated. States have to have their own speed. A lot of reforms are sitting in the states. Center can only do that much in that many areas. And occasionally you see a strong leader comes and moves the needle to a different level. 2 or 3 big reforms happen. Look at GST. I mean, this is
It's a huge thing. Yeah.
20, 30 years we have been wanting one unified, country, no octroi. It's happened.
So let's talk about your industry, telecom. Fair amount of turbulence there. You're looking fitter than than usual. I don't know if I can say the same about your business, but you've been a veteran of sorts of the telecom industry, in some sense pioneered it. How bad is the financial condition of telcos as we speak?
Well, I would say condition of telecom industry has been appalling, and that's one reason why 8 companies have just gone out of business. $45-50 billion have been written off. It's been a brutal situation out there. 2008 was bad enough, and 10 new licenses were given without any real consideration for the industry or for the country. A lot of people thought it's a land grab, it's a gold rush, came and invested. Large corporations like Tata's and Telenor and Airtel and Arcom and many others have finally had to pack up. And only 3 companies remain. The second and third largest mobile operators would idea to merge together just to survive. So things have been brutal. For us to say everything is hunky-dory, everything is fine would be wrong. The spectrum auctions went horribly wrong. They were too expensive. Looking back, that money should have gone more into networks, into creating a digital ecosystem, rather than going into fiscal deficit filling up the government. So I would say spectrum, very tiny amounts of spectrum, only for 20 years, went too expensive. I think that, to my mind, was one fundamental flaw.
So you're saying it's not just, CY has written a letter to the DOT asking a 2-year extension on spectrum payment. You're saying it's not just a Vodafone Idea problem, it's an industry-wide issue, the financial condition.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody has debt. I used to be comfortably less than 2 to
True.
debt to EBITDA of 2. We are at 4 plus. So obviously...
But Mr. Mittal, where is the disconnect? There is this big vision of the Prime Minister, Digital India, and then you talk about levies yourself. The government hasn't come out with a solution, no intervention. At what stage of an industry's decline does the state need to intervene?
I've heard the finance minister talk about 2 industries, airline and telecom. That too much competition is also bad for the country. He's made that statement in 3 speeches I've heard. And the message is being picked up by the government, that you can't have these, very, very important 2 industries who have large employment base and importantly, very core to the economic activity of the country, just not do well. So you can see there the realization. The question is, will they do something about it? I really don't know. The fact is, world over, this is the problem. This is not an India problem. Every regulator wants more money and also wants digital ecosystem. China Mobile was the only example where Chinese government called China Mobile, gave them 100 megahertz of spectrum, 100, not 5, 10, India gives 100, in exchange for 1 million base stations to be deployed in 3 years, 0 charge. And that was truly
and that's how it took
visionary digital China.
But when you say you don't know when will the government intervene, have you reconciled to the fact that in some sense the government is presiding over the decline of telecom?
Not really, but there are some limitations the government has. What should they do? Write a check for me? They're not going to do that. We are hurting ourselves. We need to fix ourselves.
Create a more level playing field.
Yeah, so I'm saying we have to ensure that we are not driving this industry down into the ground, and it should start to heal. And we have started to make that effort by having a minimum ARPU plans and all that. So we are making some efforts towards that.
You know, I'm going to ask you a bit of a tricky question here, and you're somebody who's always been candid to answer these questions. On one hand, you have CY talking about the acute financial stress. We've got the pioneer of Indian telecom industry echo that. And then you've got a 22% rise in Relgio's profits to about 800 crore rupees. How do you reconcile these 2 numbers? I mean, how are you going to, how do you marry these 2 facts and read them together? Do you believe these numbers?
Well, you're not going to expect me to say I don't believe in those numbers. But the fact is the accounting policies are very different from ours. And but I mean, we also have to say that they are doing well. They have created a reasonable pool of revenue. Their expenses are still not fully baked into the equation because they still have some networks being rolled out on the broadband side. Their spectrum depreciation policies are different from ours. So you have to take those into account. But I think that's not really an issue, how much profit they're making. It's really for them to decide, for them to make. Overall, the industry, even with their investment of $42-45 billion, what is the return that is coming on that capital? One has to see. And it's very clearly this telecom industry, mobile industry is not returning even a low single-digit return.
You know, and I will come to one of the factors, and that's tariff in just a bit. But in hindsight, and hindsight is always 2020, we can attribute it to that. In hindsight, did big GSM not wake up to the threat that RelJio was posing? Were you dismissive of them? Were you in denial?
No. In fact, if you recall, 2012 is when we launched 4G in Calcutta, clearly knowing what's coming. For the last 3 years, we've done a program which is called the Project, I think I had a name for it, I'm forgetting that. There we put $10 billion commitment in 3 years to roll out 4G networks. I'm glad to tell you that $10 billion has been invested. This March we'll complete the cycle, and in fact it will be more than $10 billion. So did we not anticipate this? Of course we did. We anticipated big capacities, we created big capacities, and we have rolled out 4G networks almost entirely across our 2G and 3G network.
How much of the RelJio disruption is on regulatory arbitrage, and which is where the whole level playing field argument comes in?
Put a percentage, but regulatory issues have been a problem for the industry, and I will not, not say that regulatory issues have taken a large pool of our profitability, our margins away.
You were the number one operator in India. You've ceded that position to a combined entity, Vodafone and Idea. And if things are going the way they are, and if those numbers, if to believe, RelJio could very well be headed in that direction. Does that hurt?
20 years being number one.
You've been in a zen position of sorts. If it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it does. Well, actually, it doesn't hurt, because in the end, 20 years I was number one. You didn't come and put a crown on my head. It's okay. In a three-player market, if all three are sustainable, strong players. I mean, today if I ask you in UK who's number 1, 2, 3, 4, you will not know it. Yeah. Is it O2? Is it Vodafone? Is it the 3? So they are, all networks are more or less equal. Go to Germany, go to Italy, Vodafone, TIM, operators. So it doesn't matter. Look at Kotak Bank. I don't even know it's 4, 5, 2, 3. I don't know.
It's a good bank.
It's a great bank. Yeah. So I think that is the analogy. We have to get off this high horse. I have to be number one. 20 saal number one is not a small period. 20
saal baad is almost a thing that you're writing. But very quickly, sir, and I think you said, it's the 3 that are in the market. And one thought, with being reduced to 3, you will have pricing power that will come back. Why has that not returned?
But that depends on the new operator. But he's keeping low tariffs, he's subsidizing a lot, and it will be his call. We have started to do whatever we can do within our control of minimum ARPUs, bundling content like Netflix and Amazon Prime and Z and Eros and Hulu. So we are trying to do within our power what we can do, but ultimately we can't stand alone on the side and have a gold-plated tariff plans. But the fact is, before Jio came in, the pricing was 300 rupees a customer with minuscule data consumption. Today, with 11-12x of data, can we just get back to 300 rupees? We don't have to go 10x of that price, of 3,000 rupees. But can we go back to pre-Jio pricing? It's eminently possible, but no one operator can do it. And I think the government will be very happy if we can sort out our affairs ourselves. Because why should a customer who's consuming 15, 14 gigabytes of data a month not pay 5, 6, 7 rupees a day?
You are in the business of communication. Do you have this communication with Mukesh Ambani when you meet him, that where are we taking the industry down?
I meet him all the time. We have very cordial relationship. We meet each other, I would say, every now and then. But no, I mean, he will have to run his industry and his company. We have to run our company. We have to really stop now getting into that, when will you repair it, what will you do? You have to do your own stuff. Vodafone Idea have their own dynamics, we have our own dynamics. We are thankfully financially very strong. We will, raise more capital, we will sell towers, deleverage. So a lot of work is going on.
So quick questions here. Tata Tele Airtel deal finally gets the NCLT nod. It's taken quite a while. When will the deal close, and how compelling does the deal now become?
Well, there's a large pool of spectrum that comes with it, so I think that's a good start. There's a pool of customers, much lesser now. The delays really hurt everyone. Some revenue and some customers will come. And that's fine. And now NCLT has done the job. Now it moves on to Sanchar Bhavan, which has its own timelines.
I can almost hear the exasperation in your voice.
I mean, I wish, this is the ease of doing business. Sanchar Bhavan should say, even in 30 days, we don't approve you. You're
It's deemed
automatically
approval,
approved.
yes.
Why can't they take that bold position? But they will not.
Oh, absolutely. So let's just turn away from India, where the pain points, and talk about Africa. When is the big IPO happening? I know you've appointed bankers, but can you give us a timeline? And how much are you looking to raise?
Yes, the pre-road IPO roadshows will start to happen in the next few weeks. I would say things are progressing.
So a quick last question, and I'm not just talking to you as an Indian entrepreneur who made it really big and all of that, but you've pioneered this industry. You've in some sense set it up, and then people have come to raid the revenues, so to say. But that said, would you say that the viability that you're fighting with, is this the toughest phase of Indian telecom?
It is indeed, no question about that. 2002 was bad enough. That time also we saw a lot of toughness, but this is at a different level. You keep in mind there is not a single case in the world, and will never be, where a new entrant comes to put $30-40 billion to start a new telecom company. So that is unique in itself, and that you have to give credit to Mukesh. He's done it, and he's become a serious player in the marketplace. The good news is there will not be a fourth one.
On that note, thank you very much for speaking to us, sir. Pleasure. That's Sunil Mittal in conversation with us right here in Davos, talking about his business, the macroeconomy, and of course the big elections that are pending.